Welcome, welcome everyone to season 3 of Runners Roundtable. This is a season of celebrating all the how-tos of running, and we are getting it started so good today with Christie Zook. She's going to be talking to us about gear. But before we even get into that, Christie, do you mind introducing yourself to us and telling us a little bit about how you went from a half marathon to a 50K to 120K? When I saw that, I was like, wait a minute, when did this happen? And how did she do that over 10 years? Like, where and how and mentally? So tell us about yourself and a little bit of your running story and how you came to be the runner that you are today.
Yeah. So, hi. Um, I have been running. I didn't start running until I was an adult. So I didn't grow up with track and field and like all of that knowledge kind of just being natural. I had to learn everything the hard way. So the things we're talking about are all the things that, many of us have learned the hard way. So hopefully we can save some people from making the mistakes that you and I might have made along the way. Um, and so I have had to learn how to run and then take those lessons and apply them to restarting after having kids. I ran through both of my pregnancies, but if we're going to be honest, it's more like waddling and shuffling. It's not like anything that's truly very athletic. And then you kind of have to like restart and learn how to work it into like your new life. So the last 2 years actually is kind of where I just took the leap from half marathon into the bigger distance, and I just jumped straight over marathon because I just like, I like running. That's why I'm a running coach, because I want everybody to love running as much as I do. And I love trail running. So if you run like a 50K, guess what? You get to spend a whole lot of time running on trails to train for that. And so that's kind of fun. And then I just kind of wanted to see where I can go from there. So yeah, recently I did a 120-kilometer stage race, which is over 3 days. So imagine like Tour de France, where it's essentially 3 individual races stacked back to back. And so that was 15 miles and then 30 miles and 30 miles. So for each of those 3 days in a very hilly area. So over the course of the 3 days, it was about 15,000 feet of elevation gain.
Wow.
So climbing, did lots of hill work and just time on the trails to get ready for that. And it was so much fun. And I think everybody should do something that pushes them to where you're questioning if you can even get through it at some point. Because when you make it through the other side, oh my gosh, you feel so like a superhero.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't have to be a distance that long. So people who
No,
are
it could be a
listening to this, it can be
5K.
whatever you
In the
want.
middle of a 5K, you could be questioning, I'm not sure if I can do this, or I'm not
Yeah.
sure if I can do this at this pace that I set as a goal for myself. That, and then coming through the other side of that, it's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love what you said about the restarting because I feel like running is a continual process of restarting, right? Because you have life that happens, but then even, and I think of this myself because I'm in a phase of restarting where a month ago I ran the London Marathon and I'm trying to get back into a rhythm of running and my body feels awkward. I mean, I took 2 weeks off to recover, to give my body time to process the event. And it's been rough. Like coming back to running has been really rough. I have no sense of what my pace is anymore and what the effort and how that connects. So I laugh every time I look at my watch. I'm like, I'm not gonna look at my watch because it's silly, but it's everything is I'm either overreaching, unproductive, or every single run is viewed as a tempo run. And I'm like, it's not my fault. I just don't understand what my body is doing right now and what it needs. So I love that you point that out because it is it is a process of restarting and rediscovering yourself after you do those big events. So I'm curious for you, where are you with running right now post this 3-day running adventure of yourself? What's your relationship to running at the moment?
I'm back running again. I took some time just like you. I took maybe a little more, maybe like 2.5 weeks completely off. And then I had to run again. And I know, like, running at like an easy level. I've done about 10 miles as my longest run since then. And that was, I guess, 5 weeks ago now. So 10 miles has been my longest run since then. And 2.5 weeks completely off, and then just kind of like running for fun and balancing that it's not the most important thing. I don't have to make my life revolve around my running schedule for a little while, and like the whole family doesn't have to like work around what my training is supposed to be today. And enjoying that it's that balance for a little while. And then that being said, of course, I'm already like, I got to get something like a little bit more formal going. And it doesn't mean I have to start training for another stretch goal or another big distance or another time that I'm heading for. It just means I'm ready for more structure to my training again. And to have that be something that's a little bit more solid.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Where, I mean, this morning I did my first, I feel like, structured workout with strides. And even then, again, it was that like, oh, this feels like there's comfort in knowing this is a workout I've done before. But at
Mhm.
the same time, I feel like it was unfamiliar of not really knowing. I always say I feel like a baby horse learning how to gallop. Like I feel so awkward in my body because there was a rhythm there. When you're in training, there is a rhythm to the training. And when you meet your goal of participating in whatever event it is, that structure goes away. And there is this period of time of being in between, this very in between space where, yes, all the runs can be fun and easy, but also the runs, and I love to run too, but it's a different mental approach to it because there really isn't, and I don't want to say that there's no purpose to the run because there is a purpose to it, but it's kind of like this run isn't helping me get closer to a goal because there is no goal right now. Like this is just bringing in back that routine and that rhythm. So it's so interesting to hear how we can, again, it's the cycles and the seasons of running and how it's okay to have that and how it's okay to, we're going to continually go through that. um so I want to pull us back into the topic of this episode, and it's about gear. And I'm curious for you, what is your, do you have any funny gear related stories to share with us, or something maybe from when you were a new runner and how you learned? Because, like you said, hopefully people learn from us and the mistakes we've made or the missteps we've made. But was there anything that you experienced when it came to gear that when you look back and you're like, oh, Christie, okay, you were a baby runner, we're going to forgive that. Is there anything like that for you?
I would say in clothes. Um, I thought I could just pull out, I used to be more into going to the gym. And I thought I could just pull out a lot of what I had. And this just might like date me, but like in college, like tech fabrics and stuff weren't really a thing. Everything was cotton. Your shorts were even cotton, your shirts were cotton. And it was like, I think, and at least in my experience, unless you were somebody like really, really serious, your workout gear and that you went to the gym and was cotton. I know that that's not the case now. That kind of for like the everybody, you probably have some tech stuff in your closet, but I didn't really. And race shirts were all cotton. Now they're usually not anymore, which is at least good because then they're useful. um, but I didn't realize how much that actually mattered. Not just like, you're going to look cool, right? But the wicking fabrics will reduce chafing, which will make you more comfortable. And if you're comfortable, you're going to do something more often and you're going to enjoy it more. So the fabric that something is made out of, I couldn't imagine running in cotton shorts anymore. And like the idea of like thighs and all of that, like, I don't know, that's crazy. And then if you're then taking it into like, if you're somebody who might be a runner, comfortable running or not, and is starting to explore trails for the first time, the materials of your clothing actually matters. And I consider it a safety thing, because being out on trails, you're in wilderness, you're farther from civilization, and it takes a lot longer too. So you've got somebody who is used to running on roads, and you might go out for a 5-mile run on the trails. It might take you twice as long. And in that time, the weather could change. So you could get all sweaty in your cotton t-shirt. And if you're in like the mountains, or you go into like a shaded area, the wind picks up because you've been out there for twice as long. And then that can lead to like, I mean, heaven forbid, something like hypothermia or something, if you're in cotton gear, can actually be a problem. So sweat wicking stuff will dry faster. And especially like I live in Virginia near DC. And although I'm like a California girl transplanted here, so I still don't understand winter. And if you're running in the winter too, that's a safety item to have the proper gear. And it sounds so silly because it's just clothes, but it'll keep you from getting hypothermia. And even on a much lesser, more like actually affects every one of us, is if you are wearing those things like cotton for a cold run in the winter or a hot run in the summer or whatever, and you leave it on, it's your body, well, especially so for instance in the winter, that's keeping a sweaty cold item on your body, which is then taxing your muscles to warm your body. So you're actually delaying your own recovery by having that stuff sit on you and keeping you cold and chilled. And then flip side, in the summer, something as simple as a cotton t-shirt, it doesn't breathe, it holds your sweat. And if you're in humidity, it is going to, your sweat is already not very effective in humidity, and it's going to make it worse. So you're going to make yourself hotter and more uncomfortable, and just, it's not going to be very fun. So something simple like that, just, and we're talking like, you don't even need to have a fancy watch or anything like that to get started as a runner. Go out and run a couple miles, but pick the tech wicking fabrics that are in your drawers instead of the cotton t-shirt.
So that was going to be my question. Let's pretend I'm a new runner, or I'm just someone that's new to the sport, and I say, I want to run, and you work in a running store, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you work in a running store, and I walk into the store and I say, I don't know what I'm doing. I want to run. What can I do? And look, I will give myself an example. I've told this story before on the podcast, where when I first started running, I knew nothing about gear. I just showed up to a run club and we did a run together. You know those drawstring bags that people usually give out? Okay. I wore a drawstring bag with a plastic water bottle in it, my phone, and my keys. A drawstring bag. So my first run, I did that. I had no clue what I was doing. I just knew I needed to carry items. I don't even remember what shoes I wore. I definitely wore cotton. For sure, I wore cotton. And I started running with this group and started training for a half marathon with them. And I would show up to my long runs with my drawstring bag. And the day after the runs, I would wake up really sore on my shoulders. And I'm like, why am I sore? I don't understand.
And probably with like a bruise on your back, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was great. So finally, the woman that I ran with was like, Steph, why are you running with that? And I was like, I didn't know I could run with anything else. Like, I thought this is how people did it. Like, that's what I thought. So imagine you have someone like me come in with my drawstring bag and I ask you, what do I need? Imagine you're taking me on a tour of the running store. What
Mhm.
are the things that you would absolutely say, or just at minimum that I would need in order to get started in running?
Yeah. So the first thing would be shoes, because a good pair of shoes that's fit for you is going to help prevent injury. Again, it's going to keep you comfortable. And if you're comfortable, you're going to do it more, right? So a mistake I see people making is pulling, their running shoes out of their closet and getting started. And that's great. But if those shoes are some shoes you've been wearing for a year or even longer, they're not going to be good for your body anymore. And if you're in shoes that are broken down or worn out, you could be feeling shin splints. You could have all kinds of discomforts spreading anywhere in your body that have nothing to do with your feet. It could be your shoes. So have a nice pair of shoes that you are replacing at least every 6 months. If you are running, if you have a watch or an app that you're tracking, and you can put, a lot of them have a place to put your gear, to track your gear. Track the miles you put on your shoes. Most shoes last between 300 and 400 miles. And then you might go like, oh, but they still look fine. The thing is, like, they'll probably still feel okay, maybe, but they're starting to like wear down little bits of in your body as the shoes wear down. They are no longer doing their job very well. And if you are feeling aches, then it's too late, right? I mean, then hurry up and like go get a new one. It's not too late to do that, but it means that you let it go for too long. So a good pair of shoes, there's all kinds of things. If you go to a local running store, most local running stores will really take a lot of time to watch the way you walk, watch the way you run, make some good recommendations, see if you pronate. You might not even know what that means, and guess what? It doesn't matter, because at a good local running store, they will, and they will help you find a shoe that matters for you.
I love that. You're like, if you pronate, but it doesn't matter. And
No.
it's funny that you say that because I didn't, when I first got running shoes, I had no clue. Like, I didn't know that there was a mileage limit to them. But over the years, I've learned the minute my body starts to feel awkward on a pair of shoes that I've run in a, like for a while, that's when I immediately change it. And for me, I usually feel it in my shins. Like that is the first place in my body that starts to act up when a pair of shoes has reached its limit. And I think it's so great that you pointed out that the shoe may look fine and it may, when you touch it, you move it around, it may feel fine, but it may not have the support that it needs in order to keep you moving. So when it comes to shoes, I think the question I have, because running shoes are not cheap, right? You've got they have run the gamut. The last time I bought a pair of Brooks Ghost, I remember
Mhm.
telling my husband, I'm like, when did this shoe get so expensive? When I first started running, it was $100. Like that will date me how long I've been a runner. But when I first got it, it was $100. And back then, that was a lot of money. And when
Yeah.
I recently looked, I think they were 140. And I was like, wait, I
Mhm.
don't understand. Like, this is an everyday, and this is supposed to be an everyday trainer. Again, if that means nothing to you, don't worry about it. It's just supposed to be a shoe that's supposed to be good to run all the time in. I couldn't believe that. So how do we work around that, or how do we have that discussion, right? Because if you're saying, hey, the shoe is good for 6 months or
Mhm.
300 to 450 miles, whatever the range is, because I feel like that it is a big range depending on the athlete, depending on where they're running and all of that. So that new runner, how do you have that discussion with them? Do you say, hey, here's your shoe, good to go? Because I don't think I ever got that. I don't think I ever walked into a running store and was told
Mhm.
that. I feel like I learned that from, and I'm sure it's the same for you, right? Once you get hooked in the sport, you go into research mode and you try to learn everything about it. And that is our first bit of gear. And it's the most important gear. And for me personally, that's the gear that I go through the most. And
Yes.
anytime I have to buy shoes, I cry a little bit. I honestly
Yeah.
cry a little bit because I'm like, wait, why are they getting so expensive? So how do you have that discussion with people? Do you tell people it's good to have a rotation of shoes? Do you tell them, hey, one shoe and you're good? I mean, now again, I've learned a lot, and I at this point I've gone to the extreme of excess, and I have a different pair of shoe for each type of run that I do. So I'm like, oh, if it's I have my easy run shoes, I have my long run shoes, I have my speed workout shoes. People don't need to do that. But when people come into you and they're curious about shoes, what are some of the things that you tell them?
Yeah. So for a new runner, start with one good one. And what you said, $140, that is really like, that's what you should expect to spend. And go to, like I said, a local running store. If you go to somewhere like, not to call anybody out, but something like DSW, they've got a billion shoes. You think I can go and get a good one, right? And they've got like Nikes and they've got New Balance and all. It might look the same. They carry different models than like a running store is going to have. And those might be great for like daily, taking your kids to the playground, going on walks, but they're not going to hold up the same as the models that are in the running stores, because they are built for running and they are built at a higher quality, which is probably why they're going to also cost more than like what you saw at Kohl's or whatever, right? And once you learn the model that your feet really like, then you can shop around for it, but just that's something to keep in mind. So I would say for that new runner, start with one really good one. When you're running really consistently, you can get 2 pairs of the exact same shoe and just rotate them every other day or every other run. Because one of like the things the shoe does, right, is cushion so that you don't have quite so much impact on your body with every step. And so if you step down, you're compressing that cushion, and then you put it in the closet and you take it out the next day, it hasn't fully fluffed back up again. So then you're compressing it down again and again and again, and you are not getting the full benefit of that nice fancy cushion that you paid for. So if you swap your shoes every other day, then that already is going to give you a bigger benefit. And then you can be like Steph and get all the different shoes and all the colors and all that as well. That's great.
Oh yeah.
But as a starting point, I would say one really good one, and then when you're ready, a second one to rotate. And then each of them will last longer. And as for like the expense and how do you not cry, or maybe cry a little less every time you have to buy a pair, I think it's a way to be proactively taking care of your body, so you can either suffer through that $140 swipe every 6 months, or you can wear the same shoes for 2 years and end up needing to pay for a physical therapist to correct some injury that you've created for yourself. So that's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah, I love
And look
that.
for sales. Everybody has sales,
So
Memorial
I
Day
was
is
gonna
coming
mention
up,
that.
4th of
Listen,
July, like look for the sales. And when it's like buying a car. The new model comes out, and so like last year's model is now like on sale. And most of the time, the biggest difference is color or slight tweaks. Buy 2 when they go on sale, because the new model comes out, and then you're set for the year at like, a much discounted price, if you know that shoe works for you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say I love the sales at the running stores. I look forward to them during the holidays because you'll go and you'll get, it's at least 40% off. And it's really exciting to get those shoes. I have a question because in Miami, so I'm in Miami, Florida, the running stores here, and this is a benefit that I tell people in my community when it comes to getting running shoes, to get it from a running store, because they usually have a 30-day return policy where you can wear the shoes, run in it for however long, like within that 30-day time frame. And if the shoe doesn't work, you can return it. Is that the same for you as well with shoes?
Yes. So as far as I know, I've never seen a local running store that does not do that.
Okay.
And that
Yeah.
means you can run in them outside on the trails, get them dirty. And because somebody, they want you to be happy with it. Many running shoe companies will also have a similar policy if you buy from them direct. Like if you're shopping online, I wore Nikes for like 10 years, and then they had one of those changes, and I could not run 3 miles in them without like feeling like my feet were on fire. And thank God I just mailed them back, and I ran in them, just mailed them back, and then found something else that worked. So yes, but a local running store also will help you find like this didn't work and why, and problem solve to put you in something new.
I have a question
Yes.
to kind of go off on the shoes. Do shoes need to be broken in?
No, no. That's something like that was true maybe when you and I started running. um, and it's something like as kids or, with other types of shoes you might still do, but a running shoe should feel great when you put it on in the store the first time. And
I,
you should not need to broke it in. I still would not suggest running a double-digit run in a brand new pair of shoes for the very, very first time, just because I don't know, maybe I'm superstitious or something. But like I said, the example of the Nikes, I had worn Pegasus for so long, and then a change came out, right? So that is why I would not recommend going on like a double-digit long run for the very first time. But no, shoes do not need to be broken in. And the best shoe for you is the one that feels the best when you try it on.
yeah, I love that because I've had, and yes, when we first started running, I remember I would have to break shoes in, like I would have to run at least 15 miles in them to get them into a good space for longer mileage. And I found that the older I've gotten with shoes, I've just become so much more particular that if I wear it for a 3 mile run and it doesn't feel good, it's going back, because I
Yeah.
think that's part of it, right? Like I'll wear a shoe in the store and it feels good and it feels supported. But the minute I get out there and I'm actually putting force on it, because even in running stores where there is a treadmill, I appreciate that. And I'm just speaking for me personally, whereas
Mhm.
I appreciate being able to try it on a treadmill, but there's nothing like going outside in the heat and the humidity and like the real conditions in which I run in to get a good feel for whatever shoe I'm in. And there's the example I give is the Hokas. I forget which Hoka it was, but I really wanted to love the shoe. I did my research and I tried, I found what's a current running shoe that I like and what's something comparable within Hoka. Tried it on in the store and I was like, this feels interesting. Like, I think I can do it. I went on one run, and I returned the shoe immediately because it did not feel good. And I felt like I was putting too much work into the shoe and not getting the return that I had expected. And now I'm just at a point where it's like, if I'm going to spend a lot of money on a shoe, I want to spend the money on the shoe that feels good for me.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you highlighting that, because I think that's something that when we first started running was the case, that shoes did need to be broken in. And now I feel like that isn't the case anymore. I mean, when I started running, one of the shoes that I wore were the Mizuno Wave Riders, and they were great shoes, loved them. And then they changed models and I didn't love them anymore. And we're talking about years later. I went to the running store, they had them on sale. I tried them on, I'm like, feels good. Let's give it a try again. And from the first run, I was like, these shoes are great. So I think that even that's important to remember, that the models do change. And sometimes there's some models that are just not great. And it's totally okay, but you can revisit that shoe. So I really appreciate that, because I feel like the shoes are the most important running gear you are going to have. So you have to feel comfortable in them. We have our shoes. That's our foundation. where are we going next in the running store in building our gear for our runs?
Yeah, well, I would stay on the feet and get some good socks. Because again, cotton, I'm sorry if you are sponsored by the cotton industry, probably not, because they're not going to do good things for you while you're running. If you've got cotton socks, cotton traps moisture. So this was the same problem everywhere else on your body, right? But in your feet, even like it doesn't matter the weather, your feet are going to sweat, and your cotton socks are the barrier between your feet and your shoe. So there's going to be rubbing. And if it's trapping moisture, that little bit of rubbing is going to make blisters. And then you're not going to want to run ever again. So good socks that again are wicking, and that's like whatever your preference is, thin, thick, up to your knees, down to your ankles, whatever, but just a good moisture wicking cotton sock. Yeah. And then I would kind of keep going up, like I said, with the clothes. Many people have some kind of a smartwatch now. So I would even, for somebody that's starting, do not invest in a watch, a running specific watch, like a Garmin or a Coros off the bat. Run with your phone in like a little waist belt to track your runs. I do think as a coach, and I know that you probably, well, let's see if you agree with me. I would actually say to run with a phone or a smartwatch or something of some kind, because as a coach, we want to see what you're doing. And the data might seem meaningless to you, but we can learn a lot from it and help you keep improving. So having something like that tracking device is really helpful for you to keep getting better. If you're not looking at it, that's fine. You don't have to. That's what we're for. But don't go spend on a fancy new Garmin right away. There's really no need. There's all cool apps that are free that you can use on your phone to get that information. If you have some other kind of smartwatch or an Apple Watch or something that can do what you need. So save that money for like race entry fees or something until you need something more specific.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, my first watch was a Garmin. I can't remember the model, but it was $125. Like I remember that because it was just the most basic Garmin watch you could have. It was, I mean, all it had was you turn it on, GPS, and start it, and that's it. You couldn't program workouts into it or listen to music from it. There was none of that. It was straight up a GPS watch. It was pink. I loved it so much. I probably still have it somewhere, but it was a basic watch. And I feel like, to your point, a lot of people have their Apple Watches, and Apple Watches do have that ability. And in general, I'm sure you'll agree with me, I always recommend keeping your phone on you anyways. When you are out there, have your phone. It is a safety device for you to have. But your phone, if you have something like Strava, I think the Nike app as well, can you start the runs and end the runs from there? So there's a lot that you can do. Map My Run, I think, is another one. There are definitely apps that you can do. And yes, us run coaches love the data. Love it. Love it. It's just so much fun to me seeing the data. It's like a puzzle. And I'm like, oh, okay, here's this and here's that. And where can we go from that? So I love that recommendation because I feel that people think, and I'm going to say this, running is expensive. Okay. So a lot of people will say it's cheap and it's free. And I take issue when people say running is free because it's not. Like, it's not. It is an incredibly accessible thing that you can do because yes, you put on your shoes and you go out the door. But as we just talked about, you're going to spend about $150 on shoes. You're going to spend socks. See, there are my dogs there. I don't know if you can hear them, but they're chatting, and I told you they would chat. But socks, my favorite pair of socks, I think they're maybe $18 a pair, right? So like stuff like that, in order to run comfortably. And yes, people can run in an old pair of shoes, and people can run in cotton, and you can do whatever you want. Honestly, people, you can do whatever you want, but it is a balance of, is it helping you run your best, or is it actually something that's hindering you from enjoying the process, from progressing or accomplishing your goals, or whatever the case is? So for me, I think what I'm trying to say is, you don't have to have all the top line gear in order to do everything, but it is going to come at a cost in order to do it. I don't want to say properly, but do it in a way that's going to ensure your success. So we have feet, socks, clothes, smartwatch, your phone with your apps. If you have a waist belt, or I'm sure like even the armbands are great. That's how, when I first started running with my phone, it was an armband. Now I have my waist belt because I'm a hoarder when I run, and I can put my phone, my gels, like I can put everything in there. It's great. What else? What are other gear items that you feel people should have? And is there a difference in the gear that people should have based on the distance that they run and based on the terrain that they run?
Yeah. So, distance is probably also going to determine how long you will be out there, and how long you'll be out there will determine how much you need to bring with you. Because newbie baby runners, like you are saying, we're talking to, you have to eat while you're running, and you have to drink, especially anything you're doing more than an hour. You have to have some of that with you, or your run is not going to be successful. So hydration is one kind of category of gear. And for shorter runs, that can be a handheld water bottle. Nathan has these awesome ones with like a sleeve where you slip your hand in there. And so you're not like death grip, and making your biceps sore. Like, don't drop my heavy water bottle, right? You can kind of like relax. Which is nice. There is waist belts that hold water, which then can also hold your fuel, your phone, your keys, those things as well. And then there's hydration vests, which then usually hold a liter to a liter and a half bladder. And then you can do the soft flasks to go in the pockets in the front, which is nice because you can kind of mix things up. You can put electrolytes in your soft flasks. You can put water in your bladder. And then you've got the pockets. And because now we're imagining, right, if you need that much water, you're probably going to be out for a longer run, longer day. And this is something that I would say is not like a requirement on the trails, but if you are getting more into trail running, a nice hydration vest is gonna come in handy, because you're out there, like I said, for a longer amount of time to do the same amount of miles. And so if you want to like take off your jacket, you can stuff it in there. And all of the fuel and those things that you're going to need for that time to be comfortable, you can like pack it all on your back and still be hands-free, which is nice.
How do you feel about hats and glasses?
So to me, they're required.
For me too. That's why I'm like, it's funny because I'm like, I don't care what time I'm running at. I'm always going to have a hat. Like always, I just always wear a hat. How about, what are safety devices that you consider musts as gear?
So on the trails, a whistle, and most hydration vests will have a whistle built in somewhere. It could be like in the buckle or on like the end of a zipper or something like that, where it's built into the vest, so you don't have to get an additional whistle. And that is not even, I mean, yes, of course, also for people and safety, but also animals. Because you are in the wilderness, and if you are, say, the first one out on a trail that day, you could come across some wildlife, and the wildlife don't want to have anything to do with you, but you're going to surprise each other or scare each other, and the whistle will be enough to scare them away. So you can go on with your day. And I have never had, an issue. I have seen bears out on the trail and they don't like the noise, and it is a good thing to have. But if there's, whether trail or road, you always need to be safe. So lights, be lit up. If you are even not sure if you're going to be running close to dusk, it doesn't ever hurt to have lights. I have like a light vest. I don't like to have anything in my hand. So this is kind of like why I like the vest or the hip pack or wear my lights on my chest. So you're very well seen. And for me, where I live and where I'm usually running on roads, even if it's dark at night, the street lights are enough for me to see where my feet need to go, but the lights are so cars see me. And if I'm crossing a street or whatever, I'm seen by people. And then there's also some other items that you can kind of find what is comfortable, both like physically to carry and like you feel comfortable with to bring with you. There is some like pull cord alarms that you can clip right on, say, your waist belt, somewhere where it's not going to be under a shirt. Clip it on your pack, something like that, where it's like a pull cord and it'll sound an alarm. And so that could be, Nathan has one, and has a nice clip. It's made for runners. And Birdie is another one that's popular. That's like a keychain device that's really loud. And so that's a great way, to get the attention of either people around you, or scare somebody or some animal, something like that, away from you. There is also these really cool, for this whole category of safety items, I would recommend, there's a brand called Go Guarded. Are you familiar with them?
Oh,
Okay.
I'm a fan. I give it,
Yeah.
the ladies that I'm closest to, they've all been gifted one. I'm like, here you go, take it. Here, you have no choice. You're gonna have to take it.
So they have, as you know, amazing products, and it's things that can be in your hand, but like a strap on your hand, so your hand can still be relaxed, and they're all meant to be ready to use, not where you have to search in a pocket to get the item out to be safe. So anything from mace and ways to carry, like a pepper spray or a mace, to knives. And so personally, I have the Go Guarded ring,
Me
which
too.
is, yes, and it's really comfortable to wear. And if you're, so for anybody who hasn't seen it, do you want to describe it?
Yeah, it is. So it's a ring. It goes on whichever finger. The little pack comes with these inserts so that you can adjust the ring size. It is a soft plastic cover
Silicone.
that pulls away. Yeah, silicone that pulls away, and underneath that is a serrated knife. Again, it's a harder plastic, so you're not. And I think the question I usually get is, do you cut yourself? Do you get it in your face? And it's like, no, it covers. For me, I wear it on my index finger. And I mean, it's probably about a 2 inch, maybe 1.5, 2 to 2 inch blade. And again, it's covered by that silicone base. So you're really not like, I'm not feeling it. I've never scratched myself, hit myself, or any of that. And the beauty of that is, if you do fall forward or you fall back, you're not going to injure yourself with the ring. That's something that, I mean, I'm real passionate about safety on the run, and have done self-defense classes and have worked with people in the community to offer self-defense classes to women. And that's the one thing where I'm like, no, with this one, you can carry it the whole time. You don't feel it. I mean, I've worn it on my 20-mile long runs and it's been fine. So I'll have to link it. I'll
Yeah.
link it in the show notes so that people can see what we're talking about. I don't know if I described it as beautifully as I could have, but that for me personally is a must. And I want to say that I was so impressed because last week while I was on a run, I saw a man running and he had mace in his hand. And I'm like, oh, this is so nice to see a man doing that. Like, I often get really grumpy when I see men running because I'm like, they have no safety gear, no light, no anything. Like, they're out in the wild as can be, and I'm with my headlamp and my mace and my thing, and it just such a different awareness on the run. So I love
Yeah.
that, that's something that you use as well, and that you recommend, because safety, even just kind of going back to how you started, where safety has levels, right? You've got the safety of the clothes that you're in terms of how it wicks, and you being able to, I guess, process the way your body is sweating, and then safety in terms of, here's something that you wear so that you can keep yourself physically safe from others. I love that. I love that. I love that. I feel like I'm like a kindred spirit here, because we have these Go Garden rings and they're the best. And I'm such a fan of them. And I really do. I gift them to the women runners that I'm close to, because it's always important to kind of be aware. Going on this topic of safety, I'm curious to see, what are your thoughts on headphones and music and things that cover your ears while you're running?
So this is hard because for a very long time, I was somebody who could not run without a very specific beat of music in my ears. Like this one foot after the other, it would not happen without the music. I have, gotten past that now that I can run with absolutely nothing, or if I am listening to something, it's podcasts. So I don't want to take that from somebody. But if you are going to wear music or headphones of any kind, I would really, really urge that there's something that do not block all the ambient noise. So there are things that go in your ear, where the part that goes in your ear is actually devised in a way that it does not make a really good seal. So it lets in outside noise. There is also the bone conduction headphones, which the most popular brand is Shocks. And those actually curl in front of your ear, and it sits on your temple, and then it sends the noise like through your temple bones to your
Yeah.
brain, which is just crazy, right? But so nothing is blocking your ear. And so I think that those things are important, because not only the traffic around you, so knowing what's going on with like cars, but also people, not just safety, but being courteous to others that are sharing the space with you. If somebody, so I run, my kids are still very young, and I run with a stroller a lot. So for me, I can hear what my kids are doing and what they need. Although like surviving a lot of stroller runs, one thing is like I tell them I can't hear them, so I can't stop. Sorry, can't hear you. No snack,
I
can't hear
love
ya.
that.
Keep going, right? Anyways, but I can.
I love that. I love
But I
that.
have a stroller, and often I have a double stroller, and that takes up a lot of space. And if somebody is, moseying on a walk in the middle of the sidewalk in front of me, and I'm calling out on your left, passing on your left, and they can't hear me because they're listening to something, I then have to like off-road it with like 100 pounds of stroller and go around this person, which like, okay, sure, that's great strength work, but like there's just a different way that we can do it, which is more courteous to each other, and just being aware of the people around us. And that is also going to keep you safer too. Because if I'm on a downhill with a double stroller, I can't like, and you just like don't know that I'm coming and like bend over to tie your shoes. Hopefully I am paying attention also and never getting
Yeah.
that close to you, but like it could be a bike,
Right.
a bicycle.
Yes.
So there's just a lot of, it's not just courtesy, it's also safety, but I really think that they go together, and making sure you can hear what's around you is really important. And
Yeah.
also like, you can hear your own breathing, you can hear your own footfalls. So as you progress and you're no longer like brand new baby runner, you don't have any cotton in your closet anymore, right? You can tell like, oh, this run is feeling a certain way, but like I'm feeling really hard, and gosh, my feet are really loud, my footfalls are really loud. That's not the way I usually am. I need to maybe adjust my stride, change the way, like feel a little lighter on my feet. It'll sound differently and it'll feel differently, and that'll change this run, you know. That is also something that can come into play as you progress too.
I love that because I similarly, when I started running, I needed my headphones. I needed my music. I can vividly remember the start of a Chicago marathon. Don't remember which one, but I can remember the start of the race and me freaking out because I couldn't get my headphones and music to connect. And it was such a distraction. Talk about unnecessary stress before starting a marathon because I'm trying to get it to connect. And in 2019, so it's an ongoing process, but in 2019, I challenged myself, hey, 21 days of no headphones. What can I learn about myself in those 21 days? I did it cold turkey. I usually recommend that people try one run, give one run a try without it, see how it feels. But I feel like running transformed itself for me once I did that because I really had to tune in. I
Yeah.
had to tune into how I was breathing, how I was feeling. Like I actually had to register the sensations in my body. Whereas the music or the podcast, and it's great, but it was kind of one of those, I was on autopilot. I was on autopilot just going through the motions of the run and not necessarily experiencing the run. So for me, I don't even think I can run with headphones. I mean, I can wear them when I'm walking, but I think if I were to put them on and try to, I would be thrown off. So I love that you point out, and I just really, really appreciate the flip side, the two sides of that coin of headphones. Yes, you can have them, but let's keep in mind safety. And then let's also keep in mind how our headphones impact how we interact with the world around us and the people around us. Okay, I'm going to have some rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
They don't have to be rapid fire answers, but just some rapid fire questions for you. And you answer as well as you can. All right. What is it like working in a running store? Because I feel like all the people that I know that work in a running store have so much fun, or if not, it looks like they're having fun. So, what's it like to work in a running store?
It is a lot of fun. I will say it is a lot of fun. Because you're around people who share similar interests. I am an extrovert. I like being around people. So everybody that comes in, you know, has questions, but it's because they're doing something either new, or maybe they've been running marathons for 40 years and it's like old hat to them, but like still, I want to hear about that. Like, I want to know what everybody is training for, or they just want, sometimes they just want stylish shoes, and they don't ever plan on running, and that's fine too. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And then many of the people that, you work with are runners, or were runners at one time, or, come in and out of it depending on what's going on in their lives. So people are always doing interesting things, and you can learn from them. And it's a great place to go where people don't care if you want to talk about running, because they do too.
Yeah, I love it. You're like instant friends, and it's
Yeah.
great. How has working in a running store impacted you as a run coach?
I've learned a lot more about things like gear. So I've always been somebody who likes to shop. So many of those things are not new to me. But things like shoes, and the different types of shoes and brands, and say like Nike's run narrow and New Balance run wide, and things like that. I didn't know about. I only knew really about my experience and things that I have, in conversation, like learned from other people. But that I think is helpful as a coach, to be able to like problem solve with people. If you've got like something going on, to be like, what are you running in? And maybe you should try this thing instead, or things like that. And inserts, like insoles for your shoes. I learned a lot about those, and, benefits of them. And no, not everybody needs one, right? But it just in general, it's helpful to have like that knowledge in my toolbox as people go through their things of trying to decide if something is pain or just discomfort from doing something new, and all of that. It's just good to have all that more information in there too.
What are your personal favorite gear items?
My very favorites. So my Garmin watch, and it is not top of the line, super fancy, but I have a Forerunner 245 that can store music. And like I said, I listen to podcasts, especially training for really long runs. I can be on the trails for 5 hours. And I'm sorry, but my brain needs a little something. Right, if you're doing that every weekend, and often by myself. So I put podcasts on my watch, and then I have the bone conduction open ear headphones that I will listen to podcasts with. So I can run free and not be attached to my phone, because if I'm getting like a phone call or a text message or some sort of alert on my phone, I actually don't want to know, because it kind of like pops my bubble and reminds me that there is world out there that I could be a part of if I wasn't spending my entire day running.
Yeah.
So I like turn off the notifications on my watch and all of that. So it keeps me like in my little world. So having the watch helps kind of create that world for me, that I can just stay in my bubble, because it can store the music. And, then of course I want to look at all the information and stuff like that. And a hydration vest. Having a good hydration vest, especially I live in an area that's very humid in the summer, as do you. And the amount of water that you need for even, like a regular run just skyrockets in the summer. And then it's a place to put that phone. I, love carrying like electrolyte tablets, because I usually only want to drink water in my bladder. So I do I can have them all in my pockets, right? And snacks. You can put so many snacks in those things. Like
I love it. I love it. How do you feel about the runner who says, or what do you say to a runner who says they are going to try out new gear on race day?
Don't.
And why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they?
Because it doesn't matter what the gear is. I personally would go so far as to say, if that gear is a new shirt, don't do it on race day. Like, it does not matter. That tag might like annoy you. It might have a seam that can like rub just enough to become a problem during the time of the race. Don't do it. That is what your whole training cycle is for. The whole thing. Like, literally, it's for finding the socks that are most comfortable that you plan on wearing on race day. For the shirt, like, what about the shorts? And like, is the liner comfortable? Do you wear something under those shorts or not? Right? That's what your whole training plan is for. Something that can be mildly uncomfortable of a new piece of gear on like a short training run. You can identify that and take it out of the options for race day, because you're already going to be uncomfortable if it's a big race, especially if it's long. If it's a 10K or a half marathon, that is enough time to get uncomfortable running. You do not also need to be uncomfortable because you have some shiny new thing you got for your birthday that you wanted to wear that day.
So how do you approach the whole like super shoes, right? Because you have your super shoes, you can't train in them like you do with all your other shoes, because they just don't have the capacity to hold as many miles in them. So as a coach with this understanding of gear, and I say the same thing, like absolutely nothing new on race day, like nothing. But then we have these super shoes. At what point are they considered okay for race day, where they're not so new that they're foreign, but they're still new enough that they have the juice to give you what you need on race day. And I think of it in particular with like the marathon, right? So say you have your super shoe that's like carbon plated, all, $200 plus for a shoe, and you can only run about 100 miles in it. And then you have a marathon that's 26.2. So as a coach, how do you work that in? Is that something is that a conversation you have with your athletes at all? Or something that you kind of maybe don't have the conversation, but you just throw it out there like, hey, let's, kind of keep this little bit in mind? Because again, when we first started running, that didn't exist, right? Like I look back at my running photos and I'm like, oh, I used to race in my Brooks Ghost. And now I would never do that because it's just a heavier shoe. So, how do you have that conversation? Or even if you're not having that conversation, what are your thoughts on how to best approach integrating shoes like that into your training and racing?
So, I would still stick to nothing new on race day, which means you have to wear that before race day. Because like you said, the number of miles that these shoes can last for is not very many. That probably means 2 long runs.
Mm.
Is it? That's all. But I would do it on a long run. I would not do it on like a 7-miler. It's got to be like a full-on long run towards the end of your training cycle. And then I also would say, as like in tangent with that, train as if you don't have the shoes. Be whatever your goal is, you should not need those shoes to make it. Because for the average person, it is not even going to take 1 minute off of your time in a marathon. Not even 1 minute. So, and then we're talking like average person. So remember, like an average person that I think the average marathon time is like 4 hours and 30 minutes, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to not even take for that person maybe a minute or so, right? So train as if you don't have the shoes, because guess what? If those 2 long runs don't go well, you won't have the shoes on race day. It is better to wear it's better to wear your Ghosts on race day than a super shoe that is uncomfortable, because you're going to be limping, and you don't go very fast when you're limping.
No.
And those shoes cannot be returned at most stores or through most brands. Like we talked about, if they don't work out, you can take them back. Those ones are usually the exception. So you really have to be sure that this is going to work for you, and that it's worth, the benefit that you're going to get out of them, and be clear what that benefit will be.
Yeah. Thank you for highlighting that, because I didn't know that. I didn't know that that's a shoe that most stores you cannot return. And again, we're talking about what you shared earlier, right? Where most of these shoes you're looking at 300, 400, 500, depending on how you can stretch them, miles, versus these super shoes that are closer to 100. So I love that. And I also appreciate you kind of giving that strategy of try it out on 2 long runs. And then, yeah, if that first long run you're wearing them and it doesn't go well, that's not what you're wearing on race day. Like it's just not going to happen. So I thank you for pointing that out. And now I'm like, wait, now I have something new for my little toolbox of, when people express an interest in those shoes, just encouraging them to find out what's the return policy on that shoe, and really having that discussion with them of what benefit is this shoe going to provide you? Because ultimately, race day is going to do what race day does. The distance is going to do what the distance is going to do. You can have all the right gear. And it's happened to me where I've worn something as simple as the sports bra that I wear on my training runs as normal. And on race day, for whatever reason, I end up chafing. And it's just whatever happened on race day. It's either weather was different or something. My effort was different. So the body was moving differently. Those are all just really important things to kind of keep in mind. All right. Last question, last one, best one, in my opinion, is what can we do to make running more accessible and inclusive?
I think if somebody is listening to this, they probably run or are interested in running, but probably you run every now and then. Bring a friend with you.
Mm,
Go out for a run and bring a friend and run at their pace. Make them feel comfortable. Introduce them to the sport that way. And along those lines, there are a lot of running clubs that are more social or big enough where there is somebody at basically any pace. So somebody's not running by themselves. That can be a really welcoming environment. I've been a member of multiple different running clubs, and I'll tell you the ones that are the funnest are like go for a run and then have a beer afterwards. And because you're getting to know the community, right? And this community that you are now a part of as a runner. And it just feels very welcoming. So I would seek out a group like that where it does not matter what pace you are. In one group that I'm in, there is one of our members is, I think he turns 90 this year and he walks, but he comes and then he joins us for social time afterwards. And so it is all paces. And it's fun, right? So find something like that. And, I guess the homework would be to the listener next week, bring somebody with you on one of your runs, somebody who has maybe been like, oh, what's this thing you're doing now these days? You've been running a lot more. Bring them with you.
I love that because I always say that we're one connection away from truly falling in love with this sport. It's hard. Running is hard. I listen, running is hard. Doesn't matter. It's hard. It's hard. What changes is your perception of the effort, right? Like it's a very challenging sport. But I know for myself, what has kept me involved in the sport for as long as I have been the friendships, the people that I've met, the experiences that I'm able to have because I share them with others. So I love that. I love that because it is. And even what you shared about run at their pace. So often I hear people say, oh, I can't come because I'm too slow, or I can't come because I run this pace. And I tell them all the time, come, I don't care. I'm going to slow down. And, the truth is aerobic is aerobic, right? Like it's aerobic. Let's forget about the pace and just move together, because you know what happens when you are running with someone you enjoy to hang out with? You don't realize that you're running and the time
Yeah.
goes by really fast. And all of a sudden you start creating, I forget what the psychological term is. It's not bundling. I forget what it's called, but it's when you bring two tasks together. So you're bringing something quote unquote unpleasant, like running can be, with something that's very pleasant, like hanging out with your friends and talking with your friends. And all of a sudden, you start to rewire your connection to that unpleasant thing. So it's no longer, oh my God, running is hard. It's, oh, I get to go hang out with my friend for half an hour for a 5K run or for whatever the case is. And then we go have the beer afterwards, or we do the social thing afterwards. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because that is the best way to grow the sport, is to make it more inviting for others. And to do that, we do have to slow down, and we also have to extend an inviting hand out for people to come and join. That's just, thank you. I'm like that. I love the way we're ending this episode. I also like to end the episode with asking, what's going on with you? Do you have any offerings coming up? Is there any big event, anything that we can celebrate you in? Is there anything exciting happening for you in the next few weeks, several months? Any offerings with coaching? What's going on?
Yeah, I do have spots open for clients, so I'm accepting a few spots for some new runners to work with me, and which is really fun. And then on like as a runner myself, I plan my year. So I just finished something big. I'm going into some shorter distance stuff. And then I'm kind of eyeing a big goal for next year. I'm thinking about doing a 50 miler. And I'm just kind of like shopping around for races, which is really a fun stage to be in too.
It's a great stage because everything's possible, right? There's
Everything is possible.
potential everywhere.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Where can we follow you and get more information on your run coaching offering?
Yes. On Instagram, I am at coach_CZ_runs. And I'm Christie Zook. So that's the CZ are my initials.
Awesome. Well, Christy, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast and chatting with me all about gear and obviously running. We talk about gear, but we also include the stories and the anecdotes and the laughs with running. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. Everyone else, stay tuned for the next episode. Bye.